Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Supporting Healthy Lifestyles. Shop right here at the wonderful, great Kansas Avenue Seventh-day Adventist Church. You have come on many times before and hung out with a few of my other co-hosts, Elder G and Elder Francis. That's Guillermo Henry and Elder Jeanette Francis. They have led us through some wonderful discussions on lifestyle topics, health topics that can help you and I live better lives. On today will be no different. You will hear some wonderful discussions about probably, we could almost say, the first pandemic of our lifetime. That's right. Today, we are going to be engaging in some conversations about AIDS. That's right. Yes, AIDS. I remember when I first heard about it, probably in junior high or even a little bit of elementary, and they were sharing all kinds of information of what was going on and how to protect yourself. And nowadays, I'm not really sure if you can remember hearing something recently about AIDS, except that this past December 1st, this past Wednesday, was World AIDS Day. That's right. That's the day set aside, I believe, since the early or mid 80s, where we not just celebrate those who are working with it, but we also mourn those who have passed. And so on today, we want to just take a few minutes out of your schedule and want to thank you for joining us and just pay attention to some of the things going on around our community right here in the Inland Empire. We have a wonderful panel, have a wonderful team of panelists available to talk with today. But before we go any further, I want to introduce to you my other co-host who is coming on today. She is none other than Elder Jeanette Francis. She is one of our elders here at our church. Elder, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here co-hosting with you. This is going to be fun.
Oh, yes, yes. I believe that we are definitely going to have a good time. You've seen Elder Francis on here many times. She has been a part of many of the other discussions, but I need you to also know she's very active in our church. She is our women's ministry leader, and she does a fantastic job of making sure that we talk about other programs too that are very impactful for the women in our community. So, Elder Francis, thank you so much for your help and assistance with that.
My
Before we go any
pleasure.
further, I'm going to introduce to you one of our first panelists. He is Dr. Daniel Pierce. Now, mind you, I am going to read his bio. And as I told him before, I don't speak medicine. So bear with me as I go through the names of colleges, institutions, clinics, and places that he has been. This man is right for the conversation today. Here he is. Dr. Daniel Pierce graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology with honors in research from the University of California in Irvine and completed his medical degree from the College of Osteopathic Medicine and Surgery in Des Moines. Got that right. And then completed his internal medicine residency at Wayne State University in Detroit, where he saw his first HIV patient in 1983. He worked in the Michigan Department of Corrections and then in multiple rural areas of the Dominican Republic. He has worked for community clinics since then in San Diego. He completed an AIDS mini residency at the University of California's Owen Clinic in 1988. He then moved on to Los Angeles as the director of research for Altamed and then Pomona, where he was an associate professor of medicine at Western University of Health Science while being a hospitalist at Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. He then moved to the Department of Public Health for Riverside, right here where we are in the Riverside County, as the main HIV specialist, and then to Borrego Health Foundation in San Diego, Riverside, and San Jacinto. Dr. Pierce is a clinical associate professor of medicine at Loma Linda University and an adjunct professor of internal medicine and HIV at two institutions. That's right, Touro University in California. Touro University at the California College of Osteopathic Medicine, and Midwestern University, Arizona College of Osteopathic Medicine. He has performed many clinical trials, resulting in being the primary or even the co-author of 31 abstract posters and 23 journal publications. He has written a monthly medical column for a Latino gay men's publication for over 10 years. His priority is making sure each patient is heard and that their needs are met. Please join and welcome with me Dr. Daniel Pierce at this time. Doc, how are you today?
Fine. Hi, happy to be here. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy educating people and answering questions.
Great. We're honored to have you here too. I'm going to turn time over now to my co-host. She is going to introduce two of our other panelists who will be coming on shortly, but I'm going to give her the time. So Ella Francis, this is you.
All righty. So I'm going to introduce Cassandra Davis. She is a proud mother of 2 elementary boys. She is also an educator and wellness blog writer. Her dad died of AIDS complications when she was a teenager. And so she is committed to community service and helping others reach their individual goals. She finds joy in traveling, art, culture, and play. And her charismatic spirit and warm nature inspires and encourages others to be their best selves. So let's welcome Mrs. Cassandra Davis.
Hello.
Hi, good to have you here.
Yes.
And then I'm going to introduce also Portia Dees. She's not quite here with us, but she's coming. So we'll pray for her safe arrival. She is an HIV influencer who comes at activism from a very innovative and new age approach. She considers herself an artivist. This passion has all the ingredients of activism, but is charged with the wild creations of art, where edges are pushed, imagination is freed, and a new language emerges altogether. She finds liberation in being able to express herself freely through her blogs, in particular on the Well Project, A Child Like Me platform. Portia graduated with her BS from the University of California, Riverside. She has been working in the HIV direct services field for about 7 years now, most recently as a linkage to care coordinator for the Black AIDS Institute. She just recently started her own business called Positive Vibes Only. Portia was born with HIV and has been sharing her story publicly for 8 years now. She sits on the Community Advisory Board for the Well Project for Women and HIV, and she also is a member of the Women's Research Initiative. She is a HIV and agent advocate intern for an organization called National Minority AIDS Council. We can also catch her on her latest CDC Treatment Works campaign. Helping others and giving back to her community is her passion. Educating people on topic of HIV and public speaking has become her calling. She feels she did not choose this life, it was given to her. Her goal is to touch and inspire as many lives as she can with her story and with hope. And then when she comes on, we'll have to wish her a happy birthday. Oh, there she is. So we'll have to wish you a happy birthday. Your birthday is tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me.
No problem. And so we'll go ahead and get started with Dr. Pierce. Please give us a short overview on HIV, AIDS, and also how HIV is transmitted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay, how about now? Okay,
Yeah.
happy to. We're supposed to turn off our mics in between, and I forgot to turn it on. Sorry, everybody. So HIV is a virus that gets inside of our DNA, and then it's replicated over and over and over again. So HIV is transmitted by either sex, needles, or being born from somebody who has HIV. Then it's silent for a while, And then it slowly, as your immune system degrades, opportunistic infections that normally don't hit the rest of us, will start to hit the person with HIV. But realize that when you first get HIV, sometimes within the first week or two, you can have a sore throat, a cough, a little shortness of breath, fever, chills, sweats, some lymph nodes, some of these, all of these. But these are so general, just kind of like COVID, that people don't think of HIV. So I have people who have this disease, and then they tell me, yeah, I was sick and I went to the emergency room, but they didn't check me for HIV, because it's like everything else. And then as the medications start to work, the CD4 goes up, which is a measure, not the measure, of the immunity, and the people become healthier and they can go back to work and take care of their children. And if you're undetectable when you're on the medication, you cannot pass it to your child as you're having birth, or pass it to somebody else during sex. So it's wonderful now that we have these great medicines, and they're very tolerable now. AIDS, the diagnosis of AIDS is made if your CD4, that measure of immunity, if it drops below 200 or drops below 15%, or if you have one of many cancers or opportunistic infections, as I mentioned. And tuberculosis, for instance, is one of the opportunistic infections, yet it can hit any of us. So in general, there are infections the rest of us cannot get. Did I leave anything out?
No. But I did have a question when you were talking about opportunistic diseases. Was COVID one of those? Did it bring out any higher levels for HIV positive persons?
Good question. Yeah, that's a real topic. It's not listed by the CDC or by any organization as an AIDS marker that your immune system has fallen down. So anybody with HIV can catch a cold or flu or COVID like the rest of us. But people with HIV are a little more susceptible to COVID and a little more at risk of going to the hospital or dying.
So did you see this in your practice where there was more HIV persons in the hospital due to COVID?
Yes, I've had a few people die from COVID. They need the vaccine more so than others because they need the protection.
Oh, excellent. And then one other question here regarding treatment. I understand now there are medications to prevent HIV for the non-HIV partner. Tell us a little bit more about that.
That's correct. There are two of the HIV medications in one pill that can, if you take it every day, you'll prevent you from passing it on to another person. But if you are, let's say you're the husband of a truck driver, and your truck driver wife is coming home on Friday nights, then you need to take your pill Friday morning and before sex Friday night, and then the next day and the next day, and then stop, and that will prevent it. Then you can just skip Monday through Thursday. So there's, something called on-demand PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis. And then there's daily PrEP. And it's hard for your lips to say these things, but the other one is called PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, and my lips mix these up all the time. And that's where a person says, hey, I had sex last night with somebody, or I borrowed somebody's needle, and I think I might have caught HIV, and I don't want to have it. So we assess the risk of the activity, and then we prescribe medication, and we give it right from the office, right then and there, because if it's not given within 72 hours, it's a waste of time, and it's a normal, regular HIV medication for 28 days.
Wow, that's wonderful. It's good to hear that there are so many advances with HIV treatment. For Portia and Cassandra, let's start with Cassandra. Can you tell us a little bit about your HIV experience as a teenager and with your father? Tell us a short story here.
Oh, yeah. So when I was about 13 years old, I found out that my father had HIV. And at that time, I thought that AIDS was something that was just in other countries and that it didn't affect people in my neighborhood or in my family. So it was very shocking to hear that he had it. At the time, my two parents were no longer together, and my dad had a period of time where he had become he had started using using drugs. And so he actually got it through sharing needles. And so when he was clean and he got ready to, change his life around, he went in and discovered that he now had HIV. And so this was in 98, and it really started to move fast with him. It was very progressive and aggressive. And so my dad, after about a year, he lost his teeth. He lost a lot of weight. It really attacked his stomach. So he would have to wear a diaper excuse me, I maybe shouldn't say a diaper, but he would have to wear protective pants or whatever they call it. And I remember at about 14 years old watching my father go to the bathroom on himself, number 2. And for a grown man to see his daughter at 14 watch him, it was really devastating for him. And that's where our really tough conversations began to start. And he started kind of preparing me about this disease and how it affects individuals and some of the things that he wanted me to do as a young woman to protect myself from experiencing it. So that was a really, that's when it got real for both of us, is that experience. And, looking back on it now that I am a woman, I understand that must have been very, devastating and emasculating for him as a man. But for me, it really just brought awareness to me in such a way that I don't think any other experience could have regarding HIV and AIDS.
Absolutely. Wow, that is dramatic. And Portia, what about you? What is your story? We can't hear you.
Oh, you're muted.
Can I ask what year your dad was infected, Miss Davis?
Cassandra?
Oh, he was, I found out about it in 1998.
Okay, so that's after the good medicines came along, but maybe he was pretty advanced, though.
Yeah.
I got it now, you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured it out. Sorry. So I was born in 1986. I was born positive. I didn't get diagnosed until 2 months after I was born. And I'm from San Bernardino, California. I had to be transferred all the way to Children's Hospital Los Angeles because at that time, I think it was only one HIV specialist in this area at the public health department. I forget his name, but he's really popular out here.
Dr. Elder.
Okay, yes. And then, so my mother was addicted to drugs too. I'm not sure for how long she was HIV positive before I was born, but I know that she found out once she had me. And so, yeah, I had to be transferred all the way to Children's Hospital where I received pediatric HIV care until I turned 21. My doctor's name was Dr. Church, and I mean, I thank God for him. And I would say that because my mom never took any medication from for as long as I can remember. She never took any medication. My aunt and uncle took legal guardianship of me because my mom was, in and out of jail and she couldn't give me the care that I needed. But then once I think right when I went to my 9th grade, right when I went to high school, she started trying to get her life together and get clean. And she actually did pretty good. But then once that happened, her health started to decline. But for all those years of using and everything, I feel like it took the virus. I think our bodies, because I have her genes, handles the virus really well, because it took all those years for it to really like hit, you know, and for her to start getting really sick. And then she passed away my junior year of high school. Rest in peace. And, I went through a whole little cycle of like not knowing how to deal with it, but I turned it all around and I'm here. And the work that I do today is in honor of her. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Oh, that's
Real
awesome.
quick.
Mhm.
If I could ask the question, Portia, could
Yeah,
you tell us
yes,
what kind
sir.
of work you do right now in the AIDS community?
Yes. So I've done HIV direct service work in many different capacities. I've been like a tester, a health educator, an outreach coordinator. Right now, I'm a linkage to care coordinator for an organization called Black AIDS Institute. And we have about 4 or 5 different testing programs. And I kind of coordinate and set up and create our testing and linkage processes. And then I also test and stuff too, and do outreach. So, and then plus I'm an advocate. So like I do a lot of self-employed contract work, I guess, on the side. I'm an ambassador and a community advisory board member for a lot of different organizations.
Wow, you're pretty busy.
Awesome.
That brings up some questions. Can I ask some questions?
Sure,
Yes,
Doc, go
sir.
ahead.
Sure. So Miss Dees, when you were a teenager, did you stop taking your medications or skip doses? Because a lot of teens do that. They're good as babies, and all of a sudden they say, "Hey, I hate this, and they rebel against their parents and against the doctors, and they stop. And then now at the end, they're on a lot more medicines than they should have been. And I have a number of people like this.
So crazy thing. Yes, I did. Once I graduated high school, let me remind you, that was right when I lost my mom. She passed away my junior year of high school, my biological mom. Right when I graduated, my parents made me take my medicine before then when I was living under their house and their rules. But then when I graduated, I kind of fell into this downward spiral. I don't think I knew, in hindsight, I didn't know how to cope with the loss of my mother. And I kind of like had this like I didn't have hope, I guess. I lost my will to live after that. I just figured I'm going to die anyways, And it also was like right around the period of I turned 21 a couple of years later, and I had to transition from pediatric care to adult care, which was a lot different. And I didn't like it. I didn't know how to adjust. So that kind of added to why I fell out of care. Yes, I stopped taking my medicine for about 6 or 7 years on a consistent basis. I wasn't going to my doctor's appointments. But in 2011, it took about 6 or 7, maybe longer, maybe a little bit longer years for my T cells to drop to the point where I started getting opportunistic infections and getting really sick. Yeah, 2011, my kidneys failed and I got diagnosed with pneumonia. And it was the craziest experience. Like, I never prayed so much in my life. I bargained with God. I did all that. And I did dialysis 3 times and my kidneys started working again. And then after that, I was like, okay, I got to get back into care. I got to do all these things I said I promised God I would do if he got me out of this situation, right? And so, yeah, I went back to school. I got back in care. I started taking my medicine. I started volunteering and becoming a CAB member for AIDS Healthcare Foundation because that's where I was getting care. And then from there, I got my first job at Foothill AIDS Project in San Bernardino. And then, the rest is history. But yeah, treatment works. I for a long time, I was like, I don't need it. but no, you need it. You definitely need it. It works. But I only take one pill once a day. I took a lot more pills when I was a kid, actually, than as opposed to today. So.
Make another
All
comment.
right.
So pediatrics tends to pamper the patients and treat them as children, and then when they come to me as an internist, I treat them as adults, but I kind of keep an eye on them because it's a hard they hate it. They just hate moving on, even though they're like 6 feet tall, and then there's these little infants in the office that they're sitting in the waiting room, so they have to move on to the adult doctor. But you mentioned the same thing. Your mother and you both kind of felt like you're an exception. Well, I can do this on my own. I feel fine. Why do I need to do this? And I'm an exception. And it's the same thing with COVID now, because people say, I don't need the vaccine. I feel fine. I'm being careful. And they have their mask not covering their nose. And it's like we have this exceptionalism type thinking. But we need to realize we're just as bad. We're sinners, like it says in the Bible, that, I would never do that. No, I'm a human being. I might do that. I have to be aware and on guard.
Yep.
Yes.
I also, Dr. Church was like my dad. He took care of me since I was a baby till 21. So, once you get comfortable with a provider, you don't want to switch. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so, Cassandra, how did you cope with the HIV as a teenager with your dad and the stigma that was around at that time? How was that with you?
Well, to be honest, my senior year of high school, my dad was really sick at that point, and I would think in my head, oh my goodness, if he came to my graduation and people saw him with no teeth, and he was like about 6'1", and he was, just bones at that point. I was concerned about what people would think if my father had AIDS. Would they think, if I had it as well, or would they be afraid to, be around me? And so I had all these things in my head at that time. And he actually didn't make it to see me graduate. And I dealt with a lot of guilt and shame concerning that, because I was so afraid that if he was there, that people would judge me. And he didn't make it. And however, I did, commemorate him in my speech. I was fortunate enough to be president of my class. And so I was able to remember him and remember, all of the fallen soldiers, to HIV and AIDS in my speech. And I was thankful to God that he gave me that platform, because it was really redeeming, considering what I had been struggling with him being diagnosed, and how I felt about it, how I felt that other people would feel about it, because there wasn't a lot of, discussion around it at that time. And I don't think that people really, understood how the disease would, spread and, and things like that. So that was definitely an experience, that I had. And I'm glad I like I said, had that opportunity, that platform. I was sitting with 500 other seniors and parents in the audience, and, just being able to speak about it openly with no shame. And I thank God for that opportunity.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is great to be able to have that. It's like closure. That's fabulous. Are there counseling for the HIV persons and their families? Dr. Pierce or Portia, anyone?
Well, yes, there is. Foothill AIDS Project and True Evolution in our 2 counties do provide advocate services, counseling, drug abuse services, psychiatric services. So I really appreciate them, because my previous clinic in San Diego and Los Angeles County, I've worked in those counties too, they're more robust clinics. So I really appreciate working hand in hand with these AIDS service organizations. And perhaps the other 2 want to give a comment on what they've experienced in the past.
Yeah, definitely. So it's one thing being, in care, seeing your your medical provider and taking your meds, but it's really those wraparound support services, like Dr. Pierce was saying, that the AIDS service organizations in whatever area you live in provide. And you wherever you live, you just gotta find them. There's one in San Bernardino, and then there's like a few in Riverside County. But yeah, they usually at those organizations, that's where you'll be able to find groups. They have group therapy, different types of groups, or mental health therapists, drug and alcohol counselors that not only will provide the services to the client, but also to their families or their partners if need be too. At Foothill AIDS Project in San Bernardino, they offer that, and at Black AIDS Institute, where I work at now, they offer different programs as well.
Awesome.
So I want to talk real quick about why we kind of don't hear so much about AIDS. This is like, I would even venture to say this is probably the first time that I've heard about AIDS and the pandemic, combined, and how it is like, what did you call that disease? Opportunistic disease or sickness that could, indicate that you have it. What's stopping us from hearing it? Is it the advancement in the medicine as the reason why we don't hear it? Are the rates of of people being diagnosed with it dropping down because of the medicine, or is it the stigma behind it? That's causing that. Anyone of you talk to us about that?
I can give the statistics for Riverside County has about 10,337 AIDS cases in. Excuse me. That's Riverside County. 10,000. I think when people are dying, that makes news, and it's not exciting when they're not dying. I mean, that's the way the news is. We're so focused on negativity that when things are going well, you get a little tiny, but when things are going poorly, that's when it hits the news. They want to scare people. They want to fear sells, and that's what a lot of people make their money now is talking about stories that generate fear.
Okay, Portia, you was about to say something? You just muted real quick, so if you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm going to add to what Dr. Pierce is saying. And I think that it's because of so like at the different agencies that I've worked for, they always target key populations or at-risk populations. And so I think that has something to do with it. Like their marketing and gearing their programs or the prevention mostly to men who have sex with men, because that's one of the key populations. Usually the people who don't feel like, if you work in the field and you're working in the HIV and AIDS health field, you know a lot about all this stuff. But outside of that, the information is not being disseminated. And I think, like, I notice when I share stuff on my platforms, like my family and friends, like, I think because they feel it's not, like, they're not at risk, or they're not like the key populations that like these organizations are speaking to, that they're skipping past it. So I think we need to start doing a better job, and it's happening slowly but surely, but gearing and marketing our programs and our prevention methods and stuff to people who are not typically thought of as high risk, or don't feel like, you know what I'm saying, that it affects them. So yeah, like, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it kind of does. Well, I want to mess around and play devil's advocate just really quick. So Cassandra, your father had it, and for some people who may not fully understand it, what was it like dealing with your other peers when it got out that, oh man, this is what your father had? And, how did you kind of like work with dealing with other people?
That's a great question. So at first, like I said, there's a lot of shame, right, that's surrounded by it, especially being a teenager. And I got the question all the time of whether or not I had it. And I don't, really, I do not have it. My mom and I don't have it. My dad started his drug use after they had separated. But yeah, that was always the question. They were always kind of like wondering about it, wondering if I was around father, if I would catch it, if I was in the room with him, or if I was talking to him. So those are conversations that would come up a lot with my peer group. And to be honest, like I said, just being transparent and trying to, be I would tell some people that my dad had cancer. I'd say, yeah, that's, he just has cancer, because I was afraid. But as I was able to, settle in it and have more conversations with him about it, I was, honest. And I did take on the conversations that came as I learned more about the disease and the spread. I was able to give them, knowledge about, hey, if I'm in the room with my dad, I'm not going to catch it. If I hug dad, I'm not going to catch it. If he gives me a kiss on the cheek, I'm not going to catch it, And so as I became more comfortable with the knowledge that I was acquiring, the conversations with others got better.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So no one's gonna get it from just like hugging somebody, or playing a sport with somebody and some sweat, kind of rubs off on them, because like, as I said before, we're not hearing about this. And then what's crazy is sometimes when someone passes away, Elder Francis and I were kind of talking some stuff before, we hear a lot of like mystery deaths. This person died, and then we have no idea what they passed from. The inquiring minds want to know, well, what was it? What was that thing that they may have passed from? And is the stigmatism still out there heavy for that? Is it still shameful to say that, what? Yeah, this person had AIDS, and this is, they died from HIV.
I think it's lower and lower every year, but still there's stigma out there. There's less stigma if you're gay amongst your gay friends, because people kind of expect you to get it. Whereas heterosexuals, many of them, like you say, are very uninformed because it's not going to affect them, and it's not on their radar. But it does affect them.
Right. So I'm concerned about our teenager HIV, those commercials. Remember, we used to have so many commercials about HIV, use your condoms and go to this health clinic to get them. And I don't see those as much. And this question comes, from a comment I see here from Maria Thorne. She says, my sister died of AIDS at 46 years old in 1992. People at her church didn't want to sit by the spot where she sat. Oh, that is so devastating. There were a lot of stigma attached to HIV and AIDS. She contracted it from dating someone that she didn't know had it. And so my question is, since we don't see it so much in the news anymore, how are our teenagers understanding about HIV, preventing those kinds of things? So Dr. Pierce and Cassandra, the whole panel, how are we educating our teenagers, or what is the best way to educate our teenagers to make sure that they are aware of how to prevent it and the questions to ask when they're dating?
I think it has to come from the parents, because in Riverside County, when I was with the county, they were really negative on bringing this up in sex education classes or talking about it in the high schools. So then these kids, were at higher risk. So Foothill AIDS Project and Being a Star and True Evolution will target the communities, like we were told, that are higher risk, but the heterosexuals are at less risk, but they're still at risk, and they need outreach too. But you have to go where the highest risk is. So it has to be the parents, and this forum you're having now is very important, I think. And if you're a parent out there, you might want to play this for your teen. This is being recorded, right?
Right.
Okay.
It'll be on YouTube and Facebook later on. Cassandra,
No
in
excuse.
the education, I know, right? So Cassandra, in the education system, are they promoting, the use of condoms, talking about HIV and dating?
I haven't seen a whole lot of it. And like the doctor said, I think that it does start in the home, having those conversations, the really difficult ones, about, sex and drug abuse, especially in Black and Brown communities. I know there's a lot of shame that's associated with sex in our communities. And so I think that a lot of teenagers try to just figure it out on their own. And that is, really, not a great thing, because parents need to, talk about it, and we need to practice, shame resilience and having those conversations with our children. And then, advocating for, school districts and state officials to, put it into the curriculum and make it something that's just as important as, the Common Core, essentially, because it's a matter of survival, and it's essential for these conversations to happen at very early ages.
I was gonna say, I think it also depends on the county, because I know, like you guys are saying, San Bernardino County, yeah, they're not doing health education like that at the schools, or at some, like Valley does a World AIDS Day event, San Bernardino Valley College. But yeah, on the high school level, it's not being done anymore. But in LA County, it's a lot different. And in Riverside County, it's a lot different too. But like what both Dr. Pierce and Cassandra was talking about, it's a vicious cycle. It really has to start in the home, and we have to have sex positive conversations. I think especially in the Black and Brown communities, religion has played a huge role in us being able to talk about sex and sexuality openly. And so, yeah, we need to get away from that, because it's not having a good effect, and it's just being passed down generation to generation.
Okay, so I've got a question, because this is just I'm lost. Why is there a target community for AIDS? You guys call, what do you call it?
Yes, they're called high risk populations or key target populations. Yeah, because
That doesn't make any sense to me. We're all humans. So like,
when the AIDS pandemic first started back in the 80s, it's like kind of like deja vu. Like the same thing is happening all over again. They had all these, church people and politicians saying that HIV was a gay disease. It was called GRID. It was called gay-related immune deficiency at first. Like how Trump did with COVID and said it was an Asian thing, like it came from China, and like all this, it's all these misconceptions. So, but the numbers and statistics also reflect that, most of the HIV infections are within the men who have sex with men population, or substance abuse. So because they're following the statistics, and then also all the misconceptions from back in the day. So, but I mean, I don't know. I just think you can't put people in boxes. Even the MSM word. There's men who were in prison for years and probably had sex with men while they were in prison, but they don't identify as gay. You know what I'm saying? When they get out, they're not, you know what I'm saying? Or I don't know. There a lot of men on the down low will not identify as gay. So when you're putting these like labels and stuff, you're boxing people into a category, and that's sometimes bad, you know, like
So, but I'm lost for a second, because if you're saying that, okay, for once, we are definitely, stigmatizing, gay individuals for it, saying, oh yeah, they have it, but then the statistics say that. I'm still lost as to why the statistics would be heavy over there on that side and not just be with everybody. I don't know if my question is too like elementary.
that.
Maybe
No,
I'm missing it.
that's a really good question. And again, I think it's also because of, so for example, the AIDS organizations that I work for, the grants that we get, we have to do certain amount of testing numbers. So say we had to do like 1,000 tests a year.
Mhm.
A portion of those tests have to be geared towards MSM, because that's the key populations they're telling us to reach.
Now, I'm
So
sorry. Could you tell us what MSM means?
men who have sex with men.
Got you.
So when we're testing, that's what, when the testing paperwork and stuff that we're having people fill out, they're only able to check those boxes. So I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's like I've had men come and get tested, and because we have to reach the numbers that we have to reach, even if they're not MSM, sometimes we're putting them in those categories because that's what our funding is requiring. I don't know how to explain it, but
Don't
Maybe I
say
could take
that. This is recorded.
Doc, go ahead.
maybe I
I'm
could take a stab
sorry.
at it.
I mean, it's the truth.
Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, let me have us take a stab at it, okay? So if
Okay.
there's one community that has 3 times the incidence of HIV than another community, and you have a general outreach, well then that community needs more money, more resources going to that community that's culturally appropriate. So there's social determinants of health, economics, food deserts, transportation, religion, cultural beliefs, and so that may be which of those is impacting their ability to get tested and get access to health care. Is it money? Is it insurance? What is it? And then they have to determine which one it is and then attack those. For instance, there are many people of color who feel with that the government actually did redlining, of course, and did Tuskegee experiment and gave people syphilis and didn't tell them they had it, and they don't trust the government. And people now say, I don't want the COVID vaccine because I'm not going to do anything the government tells me to do. It's because the government's always wrong. Well, no, is it? So sometimes it is. So that's why you have to go with it. People ask people say in a surgeon, why did you go with it for the appendix? And he'll say, Sutton's rule. Sutton's rule is Willie Sutton. They said, why do you rob banks? And he said, that's where the money is. So you go where the action is. And that's how you make a dent in this epidemic.
So, okay, so Doc, forgive me. I'm gonna stay here for just a little bit. So, are you saying that these communities and the names that the health departments kind of gives them, food deserts or different things like that, that it's also the way how they deal with the issues that probably causes them to be more prevalent wherever they are? Is that what you're saying? Like
something is causing a difference in behavior. Something's causing a difference in behavior, and what is it? And we need to deal with that. And maybe, like, there were people that would meet, these drug users would meet behind this one liquor store, and our county testers would go behind that liquor store to meet with these guys and give them condoms and do testing right there, because that's what they do.
So is it safe to say that maybe shame and that's the only thing I can think of. Shame would be pushing, would be causing the HIV virus, HIV and AIDS to be more prevalent in the gay community.
If it's shameful to be gay in their church or in their rest of their social context, then they don't want to talk about it, deal with it, or hear about it. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
It kind of does. I'm just. Wow.
I think that why HIV is more prevalent in the gay community is because of the type of sex that men who have sex with men have. Anal sex is more risky than vaginal sex or oral sex. So I think that has something to do with it as well.
Okay.
And even for women, if women were having anal sex all the time, anal sex is the riskiest type of sex. Got it.
Okay, Doc, is that what scientifically, Doc? Is Portia speaking the truth?
Very much so. That's it. It's more for the person. We call it receptive intercourse or donor intercourse. So the person with the penis has less of a risk than the person with the anus, and the person with the penis has less risk than the person with the vagina. But then the mouth, hardly any risk at all. Just skip it. Don't talk about it.
Wow. Listen, guys. Now we're not wrapping up yet, but I need you all to pay attention. Gay people in the world are not like being cursed with this particular thing. I want to put that out there so that people can, like, take that monkey off your back in the religious community, so you don't go ahead and shame somebody else about something that they're doing, they're struggling with, or whatever the case may be. But that's where I was trying to figure that out. Like, why in the world do we have this pocket where it's so prevalent there? I'm going to turn the time back over to my co-host now. I'm off my horse. She can go ahead and.
No, but along the lines of what you're saying, I think also the lack of education out there is what is also driving this. And then, even Dr. Pierce can speak to this. HIV I believe, is still more prevalent in the African American community. So like San Bernardino. So it's a shame when you take out education in the place where it's prevalent due to lack of education. And so also this platform is so important because we need our teenagers to know about the possibilities, even if you're not gay, that it is also among with your sexual practices heterosexually as well. So that's why condoms are so important. And so this is such an important topic to educate everyone on. Dr. Pierce, do you have more information on the Black community and HIV?
Sure, but don't forget that blue pill that can be taken to prevent HIV instead of condoms, because many people don't want to wear condoms. And I've talked with gay people and heterosexuals, and they say, after the first couple times of having sex, I don't even notice the condom. I have just as much excitement and pleasure from sex with the condom as I used to without. But people just will not use it, many of them, so we have this pill for them. But they can catch other things besides HIV if they don't use a condom. Okay, so, the question. What I diverted. Oh, it's more common in people of color disproportionately, because if, let's say, African Americans make up this percent, well, they make up a larger percent of cases of HIV in the United States. So they're increasing. Then heterosexual women who are of color, a larger percentage than they actually represent in the community. So it really, we need to target these people, and I'm sure that. Miss Davis has been doing that with her advocacy and her activities.
Absolutely, it's so important for Black women to know
Did I
what's
answer the question?
available to them. Yes.
I can't hear anybody.
He can't even know that we can hear him.
I was going to add to the reason why a lot of African American women who have contracted the virus have either contracted it from their partners, their husbands or their boyfriends, or through substance use. And I say that to say, I know statistics show that HIV is more prevalent in the MSM community, but a lot of straight Black men that identify as straight are living with HIV too. It's just like, that's what I'm trying to get at. The category is what's like, they're boxed in that category and they may not identify. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
no, we
completely
fully
understand.
understood you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, I wanted to ask one question here about healthy living. What steps can be taken to live healthy with HIV for both of you?
You want to go first, Cassandra?
Do you want me to speak on like my experience?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or
no, I'm sorry. I'll take it.
Okay,
So
no problem.
I know for me, once I actually got back into care and I started taking my medication, I realized that on top of that, it's very crucial to also take care of your mental and emotional or spiritual health as well. Holistic healing, not just taking care of yourself physically, but mentally and emotionally too. As someone who's living with HIV, and I feel like anyone living with the virus or who have experienced any sort of trauma in their life, uh, the shame and the stigma and stuff that we have to, go to bat for every day or experience or are subjected to, it can really take a toll on you. So I noticed that taking care of my mental health, like I needed to get into counseling, or you don't realize how trauma affects you. And it's not just living with HIV, like being a Black person in America, we experience a lot of trauma, and it's passed down from generation to generation. Some of our coping mechanisms that we've built up over the years are really unhealthy, toxic habits. And once you get into therapy and stuff and you realize that, it helps a lot. And then just with stress is the number one killer. Trauma and not being whole mentally and emotionally adds a lot to stress. And so when you take care of that as well as your physical health, it makes all the difference in the world. And then I know eating right, I've changed my diet, and that has made a significant difference as well, in helping with the work that my medication is doing.
Great.
as far as like watching my dad go through something, Portia, I just want to say that I think that you're such a brave woman coming on here and sharing your story. You're so beautiful and intelligent and courageous. And so I wanted to acknowledge you in that. And I'm sure you're going to inspire a lot of, people today to come out and to speak about it, to help others and to not live in shame. One thing I did learn with my dad, in his probably the last couple years of his life, he became an advocate, and he would go around talking about AIDS in San Francisco. And I think that that's something that helped him cope with his mental and emotional health. And I think that's really important. And I think, for me, fortunately, I was exposed to, his life very early on. And so it kind of has inspired me to live my life, a certain way. So I think that, having the conversations, being brave, not living in shame, and living a life of advocacy and faith is really something that's, really important, and to stop the spread, and to even help with, because I know my father acquired it through drug use. And so I know there were some mental things that were going on with him that he was coping with and dealing with and didn't have the support. So yeah, just taking care of each other. We're all in this together.
Right, exactly. And Dr. Pierce, while you were away, the last question was, what steps can be taken to live healthy with HIV?
Well, it's basically live a healthy lifestyle, just like your poster for this countdown for this session had a lot of fruit and vegetables on it. It's very important to eat right, sleep right, have good relationships, and exercise. And these are the basic things to make a human being healthy. I'm a vegetarian and I exercise. I try to have a good relationship with my wife. So that you can I tell people we're postponing your death and we're postponing your suffering by doing all this, and in HIV you need to do it even more. Obviously you should avoid substances such as tobacco, alcohol, and drugs.
Awesome.
There's no magic pill. People want the magic pill, but it's basic stuff we all know, but it doesn't make the news because it's boring.
Right? Something we all have to do, right? Every day. Let me turn it over to Pastor McBride.
Listen, guys, you guys have like shared with our community and those around who watch some really important information. It was something that Cassandra said very in the middle of the program when we're talking about how we deal with those who've had it and knowing that someone has it. And she brought up the term, and you probably use it all the time, Cassandra, when you're talking to people. You maybe even use it too, Portia, shame resilience. Man, that hit me so hard because, you know, we have all of these stigmatisms around any kind of sickness that you can have or any kind of classification that a person can be given as to what they do or who's doing that or whatever the case may be. And a person is left with this heavy burden. And so we want to encourage anyone struggling with something to be shame resilient. I don't even know all of what that means. I would love to talk with you some more, Cassandra and Portia, to just understand how do I encourage somebody to be shame resilient? And then right quickly, you know, we're in this wrap up moment. The doctor just brought up some really simple things that you can hear about living a healthy lifestyle, you know, outside exercising. And he tossed this one in there because you don't always hear this one, but he tossed in good relationships with other people. Like say, I'm sorry, say, forgive me, say, I love you. Those kinds of things matter. Like telling someone that they're doing a good job and you're great. I can only imagine the depression that Portia kind of went through when her mom passed and having to chuck all these pills and then thinking, oh, I don't really have to deal with this. I mean, guys, we are human beings and we're here to help each other, here to support each other. The Bible even says we are our brother's keeper. You want to make sure that you tune into our healthy living segments when we have them. You can see sometimes the advertisements will show up on our Facebook and our Instagram page because we want to make sure that we help our community. Shame is not something that we want to practice here at the Kansas Avenue Seventh-day Adventist Church. That's why we have conversations like this one and many other topics just to help to make sure that you, our community members, are safe. You are cared for and you are loved. I need to say that one more time, Elder Francis. You are safe, you are cared for, and you are loved. Before I go, I just want to give you just one announcement of our March program that's coming up. Post-traumatic growth syndrome. That's going to be coming up March 11th. I think we're going to have that there. Or did we have that already? I might have just made a boo-boo. But nonetheless, listen. Pay attention to your emails, pay attention to our Facebook page, our Instagram page. You will see new information coming to you so that you too can take part in these conversations. Again, a warm welcome and thank you to our panelists, Dr. Pierce, Portia Dees. I don't know how we missed her, and Cassandra. Thank you again for coming on. To my co-host, I would love to do this again with you, Elder Francis. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath evening.